think that the 10% should grow. I think it should be comparable to the size of the project. I don't think there should be one flat 10%. I think it should, if it's a bigger project, it should have more percentage of affordable housing. I've been a strong advocate for rent control. I've actually sponsored some of the initiatives that Fair Share Housing came to me with, Councilman Russo and myself. We are hiring an tenant advocate and an attorney. I also sponsored an amendment to the original rent control ordinance a few years ago that when a government subsidy building comes off the roll of government subsidy, it automatically goes under the guides of the local rent control laws. So people would be covered and not have to panic that their rent will go up to market rent if any one of these buildings should be paid off or sold off. Thank you.
Ms. Wefer.
So one of my favorite things about the Fourth Ward is that there is great diversity in the people who live there and the type of housing stock that we have. That said, it's increasingly less so. The city is becoming a city where we have people in the Hoboken Housing Authority who qualify for public housing and very, very wealthy people. There's not enough in between. So I agree with Mr. Ramos that the Hoboken Housing Authority, the buildings there, they need to be rehabilitated, or they need to be done in such a way that people are living in good conditions. And that needs to be done in an open and transparent way. If you look what happened in Jersey City, people got displaced. So when that happens, it is really important that it's done with the community, that everybody understands exactly what's going on, that it's transparent, and that nobody is displaced. That's very important. And on the same subject of displacement, there are people who are being displaced in other parts of Hoboken just because they can't afford to live here anymore. And that's really a very sad thing. So going forward, I think it's very important that the council work as best it can to ensure that affordable housing is built in Hoboken. It's true that the property is very expensive, but it's also very profitable. And so I think that there should be at least a 20% requirement for affordable housing in new developments. That's what New York does. That's what other parts of New Jersey do. And I think in a place like Hoboken, where the land is so expensive and so profitable, it should be done here as well. It's very important that people who live here and add to the community are able to stay here. And I think that in addition to that, we should be trying to attract people into town who come from more socioeconomic diverse backgrounds.
Mr. Russo.
Thank you. Let's answer some direct questions here. Am I in favor of affordable housing? Absolutely, unequivocally. Am I in favor of rent control? Absolutely, unequivocally. Let's make it very clear. The 10% set aside that's been referenced for affordable housing in new buildings in the city of Hoboken, I think is absolutely the floor. I think we need to start there. Anything under that 10% is a non-starter for me. As one other person stated, depending on the project, that should fluctuate. That should be more than 10%. I think that's what we need to do. Hoboken is the tale of two cities. It's very, very wealthy and very low income. That's the housing we provide. Our responsibility as elected officials in the city of Hoboken is to make sure that we house every single resident in the city of Hoboken, from the bottom of the scale to the top of the scale, and everything in between. What's never talked about, what needs to be talked about more and more, is the middle class and the middle income housing. That is what's lacking in the city of Hoboken. We do not provide for those who live in affordable housing the ability to step up into a middle income housing situation and then eventually into a market rate situation. That is what we should be doing. We should be advocating so that all of our residents succeed in life. We should not be stepping on those who are right now down on their luck or have the misfortune of not being where they want to be in life. We need to provide for each and every one of those residents. And that is never talked about. And that's what we need to start talking about now.
Mr. DeFusco.
I come from a middle-income Italian family. I know the definition of hard work, fighting for every dollar. My parents, they came from a low-income family, immigrants. I moved to Hoboken 13 years ago because I believed this was a place that was affordable for all. It had a diversity of thought, ethnicity, and income. That's rapidly changing with the real estate market and with the changing dynamic of our streets. I've seen this firsthand over the past 5 years on the zoning board as a commissioner, and I myself have fought for the 10% affordable clause and argued that as a net benefit. Now, I think that we can absolutely consider increasing that, and we should, quite frankly. But in turn, something that nobody else has said, it surprises me coming from the governing body, is what that does to zoning ordinance that was recently updated. Now, if everybody's okay to revisit that in the new year, I certainly would be as well. But increasing affordable housing is absolutely great, but we need to do it in a way that maintains the size, the scale, and the feel of our community without pushing buildings taller, without making sure we lose the sense of community that we already have. A couple things. I believe that we need to push for a tenant advocate similar to New York City. I would like to see the CPI yearly increase to move to 2%, similar to Jersey City, and better funding for the rent control office, allowing both property owners, tenants, and landowners access to the information to make sound decisions based on readily available data. So it seems that my opponent and I might actually agree on some of these things, and affordability is key to moving forward in Hoboken.
All right, ready for rebuttals, Ms. Castellano.
Could I ask my opponent how many units of affordable housing since he's on the zoning board?
There's not Q&A, but you can make your own
Okay,
rebuttal
I'm gonna
statement.
I'm going to make the statement. Thank you.
Any other rebuttals? Mr. Occhipinti next.
And affordable housing is very, very vital to many of the council members that are currently elected. I'll give you one example. One of our redevelopment projects almost fell apart over the issue of affordable housing. And the committee members, one of the committees that I am on, stuck to our guns on affordable housing. And we were ready to leave that multi-million-dollar deal with all tremendous benefits to the city of Hoboken. We were let it go over the issue of affordable housing. We stuck to our guns. We're going to get 10%. We're getting what that plan calls for and what the city deserves. Well, Chairman Wefer has tremendous opportunity in her hands, sitting at that as a commissioner on the Housing Authority, to actually bring new affordable housing down to the Housing Authority. People aligned with her, unfortunately, were against a beautiful, brand new 44-unit building that would have brought additional affordable housing to the Hoboken Housing Authority. And that was a shame. It was mired in politics. But there's nothing stopping you from moving forward again. But there's been stagnation.
Time. Anyone else in rebuttals on this one, on housing? Mr. DeFusco.
oh.
I saw him next, sorry.
I'm sorry. I'll let Ms. Wefer go first. All right. So just to directly respond to my opponent's question, I've heard over 90 applications on the zoning board, and quite frankly, I've only said no to less than 10. So I believe my voting record is a progressive one. I have shaped buildings that have moved the city forward, and to directly respond, there's 3 buildings alone that I've pushed for 50 affordable units. 14th and Willow, 1450 Park, and 900 Monroe. Large buildings that have introduced over 50 affordable units to this community. Those are 3 out of nearly 100 applications. So again, this is politics at its best. You know, somebody that sat on the council for 21 years does care about the community, but will say anything to keep her seat. So please, look at the facts, look at what I've done to advance this community forward on the zoning board, and quite frankly, look what I've done to advocate for affordable housing.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Wefer.
This is such an interesting topic to me, and it's something that I'm obviously extremely involved in as chairman of the Hoboken Housing Authority, as Mr. Occhipinti said. And I think that this is an issue that can sometimes get mired in politics, and it's really a shame when politics and policy get mixed up together. Vision 2020 would have displaced people. There was no plan. It wasn't obvious to anyone what was going to happen. People were sold a bag of goods. And Mr. Occhipinti came to the Housing Authority meetings, he stood at the council, and he bought it hook, line, and sinker. And it was very irresponsible. We do have an opportunity at the Housing Authority to move forward. We have an opportunity to have mixed income housing, but it has to be done in a way so that nobody is displaced. That's absolutely important. And the way it was going to be done didn't ensure that.
Was the one building on the table?
No, there's no Q&A. Sorry about that. Anyone else? Mr. Russo.
Thank you. I'd just like to add to the overall discussion here. You know, we have some people who are running for office here tonight, and they make statements that we should do certain things, but don't increase height, or don't use a pilot payment, or don't do this, or don't do that. But the reality is, as everything in life, there are trade-offs. And to achieve the goal of providing that housing, that affordable housing, that middle income housing in the city of Hoboken, we need to make some trade-offs. We need to do that. We need to maybe go a little bit higher in the building. We need to maybe use a pilot payment, but, which, by the way, would also further reduce taxes in the city of Hoboken through the county. We would spend less money on the county tax if we did more pilots like Jersey City does on almost a daily basis. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation. Thank you.
Mr. Ramos.
There's a great quote from a good friend of ours. If I say it, you probably know who it is. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. It's kind of like the way this issue is. When you look at the things that Councilman Russo just spoke about, the give-backs. If you can't, it's impossible to get 10% of, or to convince a developer to do 10% affordable housing in a 6 or 7 story building. It is not going to happen. There needs to be more density. I mean, someone brought up New York City. When New York City builds an affordable housing building in New York City, that building's going 20, 25, 30 stories in exchange to get that building built for the market rate housing to pay for that development for the affordable housing in New York City. Those are things that we need to try and be bold with and enact. If we want to make it happen, those are the gutsy decisions that have to be called for. And who has the guts to do it? You know, we did it on Madison Street, on Adams Street. We got to do it again.
All right, moving on. You started first again. You'd asked him that question. That was your rebuttal. So, all right, moving on. The next order will be Ramos, Castellano, Occhipinti, DeFusco, Russo, Wefer. All right, and so this is about what is your plan to push along the southwest park as we sit here in the southwest quadrant of City of Hoboken?
Yeah.
The city said construction will start in the fall. What is the delay? Another card. Southwest Park, 6 acres, 6-story buildings, only 1 acre in 8 years. When do we get the rest? 40 more years? Question mark. So please address that.
I agree with all those statements.
So please address that if you could. Just the issue of the Southwest Park, and then if you want to say anything else about other parks around town, that might be useful.
No, I think years ago when I was in the city council, we met with SW6 was a group, part of the 4th Ward, that wanted to push the Southwest Park there, going along with the redevelopment plan. We're extremely close to getting that plan adopted at the time. But again, just like what I said earlier, you know, everyone wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. That's what the Southwest redevelopment plan was at the time. In exchange for getting a free 4-acre park rather than a 6-acre park, it required for some development to take place around the neighborhood, around the park, to help pay for that. So taxpayers didn't have to dig in their pockets to help pay for that land and that park. That's something we need to revisit once again. It's been 5 years, 6 years. We haven't heard from that plan ever since. Now we're looking at less than an acre of a park. We're patting ourselves on the back for that. Less than an acre of a park. We don't know what the cost of that park is. We acquired that park somewhat years ago now. I don't know what the final cost of that park is. And on my calendar, it's the fall. We haven't seen any groundbreaking take place yet. I don't know when the park's going to get built. So my guess is as good as anyone else. We've heard about it, but it's my intention to revisit the SW6 plan and a Southwest redevelopment plan to make sure that the expense to the taxpayers is minimal in exchange for givebacks with affordable housing and other things to take place to make sure we have that 4 to 6 acre park in the Southwest part. And also address the traffic issues as well in the Southwest part of Hoboken. Thank you.
Ms. Castellano.
Yes, thank you. I've already stated my feeling about eminent domain and that Southwest Park that had less than an acre of land and 6 years in litigation right now and counting. We'll talk about the Northwest, the BASF, which is 6 acres. So BASF offered the city 4 acres, free and clear, to do what you want to do with the explanation that they could develop on 2 acres. And the city is saying, we're going to court. We want the whole 6 acres. We're taking it by eminent domain. Now, what we're really talking about is 2 acres. So 4 acres for us, 2 acres for them. So we're fighting over those 2 acres. The mindset of the administration is go to court, litigation, litigation, and litigation. And you know, my feeling is, when they say we can't negotiate with these people, well, get some better negotiators, please. Because if you're coming up to, I'm not supposed to say numbers. The taxpayers are not supposed to know what kind of numbers we're talking about. But we're not that far away from what the city wants to give BASF to what BASF wants. So give them a little bit more money, because you're going to spend that money on lawyers and litigation for the next X amount of years. So come up a little bit. We could probably come to an agreement without having litigation. Thank you.
Mr. Occhipinti.
At times, government is a very slow, painful process that takes a long time to move things forward. But we do get there. It takes a while, but we'll get there. I'm proud that I advocated to reprogram $3 million that was allocated to the city of Hoboken from the Hudson County Open Space Trust for the Southwest Park. So that money is going to be directly used for funding the park. We had an extensive public planning process for the 1 acre park where both of my opponents did not show up, did not advocate for what they would like to see there. And what we do have is a great product. We're going to have a dog run. We're going to have rainwater retention, 200,000 gallons underneath that park. We are going to have an amphitheater, bioswales. It's going to be a tremendous value add to Southwest Hoboken. And the way we expand that is through the redevelopment of the Southwest plan, which the city had to fight litigation over its designation as a rehabilitation zone with the property owners. We finally won that case. It took several years, but we are again in the process of moving the redevelopment plan for Southwest Hoboken forward. And within that plan, we need to create mixed use, commercial, residential, retail, and that's how we'll expand the Southwest Park. But we'll need to come together as a community and figure out what that density in that plan will be.
Mr. DeFusco on Southwest Park and other parts.
It's easy to get tripped up on pebbles. Sitting on the zoning board, I myself saw the area around the Southwest Park, even in the years prior to the council vote, flourish. I saw landowners realize the value that was going to be added to the community, and they invested in the community. A restaurant opened, which I also voted on. That corner of the city is now going to be premier property. It is not anti-development to vote for a park. It is actually pro-progress. And so we can get tripped up on low finance bonding. We can argue about low finance bonding. But again, I repeat, what has my opponent done to improve the conversation with City Hall? I would advocate for a Department of Community Development, somebody that would be staffed by funding from the City Council, from the governing body, and that would engage in these conversations, helping City Hall and developers work together. Now, in 21 years, somebody that claims to be so pro-development has not advocated for that. That seems a little odd to me. Now, as I would also like to just put out into the open that parks are a pretty good thing. A lot of the neighbors in the First Ward would like one. And quite frankly, I'll be advocating for green space outside the New Jersey Transit Terminal, working with New Jersey Transit and their developer to find green space that helps ground floor retail, dining kiosks, and really encouraging commerce in the First Ward, something my opponent has never proposed.
Mr. Russo.
Thank you, Bob. As I stated, I've sat on the council for 12 years, and I was one of the members of the council to advocate for the original Southwest 6th plan. I did that with then Councilman Ramos and Councilwoman Castellano. We all want a 6-acre park there. I mean, that's not in question. The reality is, how do we get there? One of my colleagues, Councilman Doyle, who's here tonight, we always have this conversation. How much are we, as a city, are we willing to spend on land? And that's different for everybody. And Councilman Doyle and I agree to disagree on what that number really is. So for me, that park is, right now, a pie in the sky. Because first of all, we're never getting 6 acres. We're not. You can't do it, right? So what we can get, how much will that cost us? We're looking at 1 acre right now. That's probably going to cost us $4, maybe $5 million. Or at least that's what's projected right now. That's the concern. How much are we willing to spend for parks when we could take that money and spend it on other things for the quality of life of the residents in the city of Hoboken, or further reduce the taxes in the city of Hoboken? Those are the concerns that I think we should all be looking at. We, of course, all want parks. we were able to achieve an amazing park being built in the 3rd Ward, again, at no cost to the taxpayer. So there's ways to do it. We just have to have the chops to go out and make sure it gets done.
Ms. Wefer.
Thank you. I think that Mr. Russo's statement sort of illustrates the importance of a ward council person versus an at-large council person. For Mr. Russo, the idea of the Southwest Park is pie in the sky, but he's talking about the great parks in the 3rd Ward, and the reality is the 4th Ward needs a park. And everybody whose door I've knocked on feels very strongly about getting the park down there, and they all ask me what's going on with it. And I'm pretty involved, so I can give them some information, but I don't think that the constituents of the 4th Ward have been kept apprised of what's going on there. And that's really a problem, because that's one of the jobs of a ward representative, is to be in touch with constituents, to provide constituent services, and to keep people apprised of what's going on. I have been involved. I did show up to those meetings. I didn't see you there, but I guess you didn't see me either. I was there. And I hope that we can move forward on the Southwest Park. I certainly would support doing that. And it's very frustrating. It's one of those things that you knock on the door, people ask about it, you just kind of shrug your shoulders and go, yeah, it's really frustrating. I empathize with that.
All right, time for rebuttals. Ms. Castellano.
Yes, thank you. So, for my opponent's information, we do have an economic development agency, a community development agency, and I'd have to ask you, Mr. DeFusco, have you seen Pier A and Pier C? Have you seen the soccer field? Have you seen Sinatra Drive? Have you seen the running fields and the bike fields that are up there? Because that was done, and that was done under my watch, and it was done working with the Port Authority, and it was all done with not a penny of taxpayer money. Thank you.
Mr. Occhipinti.
The point of how we're going to pay for the expansion of the park is one worth discussing, because we have some tools to the city of Hoboken's benefit that we can use, such as New Jersey Transport's rail yards redevelopment plan. We can ask as a give back payment into our open space trust fund. So that allows us to bond for additional funding to expand the park, in addition to using redevelopment in the southwest area as well. I really, really wish that I had every email address of every resident in the 4th Ward, because I send out my email blasts, giving updates on Southwest Park, giving other updates in the city of Hoboken, sharing information over Facebook and Twitter. I really do. I wish if I had every one of their email addresses, they would know what's going on at all times in the 4th Ward and in the city. But unfortunately, I don't. But it is something that we try to push the administration to do, better release of information to the public.
Okay. Anyone else on this? Okay. Yes, Mr.
I think
Ramos.
the means already exist to create the Southwest Park, or a Southwest Park. I think the plan that was set forth with Director Beto at the time, which we knew 6 acres wasn't a reality, and like Councilman Russo said, 4 acres was the reality. Unfortunately, that plan was in litigation. Once again, it did not go forward. So I think we had the marking point there. I mean, we built Maxwell Place Park as well. So the track record is there for things to actually get done. The means are there. The tools are there. Is the will there? Is representation there? Is the listening to their community, to what they want to see go there in that part of town there? Those are all the things we're looking for. Is the guts there to say yes or no to people when an issue arises? Then when I've been part of many tough votes on the city council, that's just another tough vote, and people will complain about the density that it will take to build that 4-acre park there. But you just got to suck it up. You have to do it because it's the best thing for Hoboken to do. Thank you.
Mr. DeFusco.
Under Councilwoman Castellano's watch, as she calls it, she voted no to a September 11th memorial on Pier A. She voted no to Pier C damages after Hurricane Sandy. These are the kinds of votes that we've had from the First Ward councilperson on issues dealing with the First Ward. That needs to change. Again, if you disagree with the way things are done, then be proactive and work with everybody to find a way to make things a reality. Listen, I appreciate her, her vote back in 1995 to advance the southern waterfront. She wasn't the only one. There's a number of community advocates that also pushed that project forward, and we enjoy it today. I do thank her for being part of that conversation. But that was 1995. We're now 2015. It's time for new energy, new ideas, and somebody that's willing to work with everybody to get the job done. I want to see a park outside of New Jersey Transit. I want it to be green, and I want it to have small businesses, dining kiosks, and ways to advance the community in ways that other communities are doing. I don't believe I said that we don't have a Department of Community Development. I said I'd like to fund it better so that they have the resources to get the job of the city done, to help landowners and to help developers and to help the city deal with these applications. She's never proposed funding it, and I would.
Okay. Mr. Russo.
Thank you. Again, I can't say it enough tonight. You have a situation where you have candidates who don't understand what council people actually do. We have a situation, you heard it here tonight, where people are talking about New Jersey Transit and using money from New Jersey Transit to fund Southwest 6 or Southwest Park. But what about the funding source from New Jersey Transit to continue our waterfront? Because everybody up here, if they were asked the next question, would you like to continue the waterfront through? The answer is going to be yes. What are they going to do then? They have to make tough choices. And candidates are so eager and willing to say yes to all these beautiful things we like to see in the city of Hoboken, where council people sit down and get the job done. We have a committee that worked on the park in the 3rd Ward that was comprised of 2 people who are not very supportive of Mayor Zimmer's policy decisions and 2 people that were. And that was a deadlock committee. But we got it done. And we'll continue to get it done each and every time because it's the best thing for the city of Hoboken. So please, candidates, stop with the pie in the sky, yes, 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 and get down to the nitty-gritty tough decisions.
Time.
Because that's what's going to have to happen.
All right, next order will be Castellano, Wefer, DeFusco, Russo, Occhipinti, Ramos. And let's talk about cars, everybody. What reforms would you push for with the Hoboken Parking Authority with humongous traffic jams? Do we really want to invite more cars to town? We have this. Our taxi cab owners have paid a hefty amount for medallion licenses. What is your position regarding Uber in Hoboken? Ms. Castellano.
Yes, Uber. We'll take that first. I'm not for Uber, against Uber, for taxis, against anything. We as a city council sat together a few years ago and we forced those taxi owners to buy hybrid cars. We didn't force them, but they had to buy a permit, which was $200,000-$300,000. We told them, we put a bunch of rules together. Okay, so they had to have their ID in the car. They couldn't take on another passenger without it. So these are all rules. And Uber comes in, and they flout all of the rules that we instilled. So as a lawmaker, I think we have, and I've said this to the council people, it's not a matter of who likes who and who likes what. It's a matter of flouting the laws that we created. How could we sit here as lawmakers and say it's okay? I think we need to set rules for Uber, and I know that the state is doing something, and I know that the city, New York City, is doing something, but in the meantime, our laws are being flouted, and I take offense to that because I sat there for hours and hours with these people, and we devised which are pretty great guidelines, I think, to protect our people in the town. I believe that this administration has a war on cars. I think that that Hoboken has just so much surface area. We need to build up. We have a lot of surface parking lots that can be either go into partnership with people who own them and build up. Thank you.
Ms. Wefer.
So parking is one of those issues that every candidate wants to run on, but it's a really difficult issue, and there aren't easy answers, and the answers that do exist generally aren't politically popular. So concerning parking, I think the answer to do we want to invite more cars into town is no, we don't. I am a street parker. I have parked on the street for 8 years. I have been through every possible iteration of a nightmare of parking in Hoboken that you can imagine. And so I speak from experience when I say that I know what parking is like in Hoboken. In the 4th Ward in particular, right now, when people are going to build something, they have to put parking in. And that's, I personally, and I think that when I knock on doors of people, they would rather see retail. And I believe those condos will still be sold even if parking isn't included in them. Hoboken has the highest rate of public transportation use in the entire country. It's very well suited to transportation use. We have light rails, we have path stations, we have ferries, and so I think that we want to discourage more cars from coming to Hoboken. However, we have to deal with the cars that are already here. And we need to, number one, people who have parking spaces should be disincentivized from parking on the street. I know people who have spaces with their homes and they'll park on the street instead because it's more convenient. So I think that, if we can free up parking spaces by disincentivizing that, we should do that. In addition to that, I agree, and I never thought I'd say, I agree with Councilwoman Castellano that we do need to build up. We do need new parking garages as well, and particularly if we can get them on the outside of town and we can provide a service where people can maybe have a valet service to bring the cars out to the garages and come back in, that would be very helpful.
Mr. DeFusco.
I asked my opponent, what about the parking garage in the Northwest Park that she said no to? Listen, I agree we need more parking, but listen, we need to work together to find a way where this parking is going to go and how we're going to fund it. I believe that we need to look to other cities. San Francisco and Los Angeles have introduced responsive parking meters. I'd like to see those come into downtown Hoboken. Again, new ideas that I'm going to bring to this conversation. Responsive parking meters would regulate our main thoroughfare, Washington Street, in peak times. So as the demand goes up, so do the prices. As the demand goes down, so do the prices. It encourages small businesses along Washington Street and prevents people from parking there for hours on end. Listen, I believe that within the historic corridor of our city, we need to encourage ground floor retail. I think that parking is essential, but when we have driveway after driveway after driveway, that actually diminishes the quality of our streets, and we need to be quite observant on that as we move forward as a city. The parking utility, hardworking, good people. I'm friendly with a number of them. They do a sage job in representing the city. As a private sector person myself, I would like to give them the training necessary to work with residents in conflict resolution. I think that a lot of my neighbors in the First Ward have not had the best relationships and experiences with the parking authority. I'd like to improve that. I will work on that and fund proper training for everybody to make sure that that relationship is approved. As for Uber, listen, my opponent says she's a lawmaker, but she should know that it's not up to Hoboken, it's up to the state. We have to follow state laws. Thank you.
Mr. Russo on parking and Uber.
This is a multiple-pronged question, so I'll try to get through it quickly. Parking in the city of Hoboken is atrocious. We all know that. The reality is that I heard a lot of things from those candidates, again, that really don't understand it. Are they willing to give up their cars? We don't want to have any new cars in town, so maybe they should give up their cars, and their friends should give up their cars. Right? Some of us need our cars to get to work in the morning. I travel west to get to work. I don't jump on the path. I don't jump on the train. So it's inconvenient for me. So those are the things that, again, pie in the sky from people who don't know how to serve the city but want to serve the city. But they just don't understand it. They continue to advocate for things that there's no way we could possibly do. The chairwoman of the Housing Authority has a unique ability. She could create parking for Housing Authority residents. She could do that tomorrow with 4 votes on the commission. We have a member of the zoning board who could do the same, and his vote's on the zoning board. So the actions speak a lot louder than the words. So when it comes to parking, there's a lot of things that need to happen, but the reality is we have way too many cars in the city for very few spaces. The second part of the city's attempt to meter the entire city should be that the parking permit in the city of Hoboken should be at 0 cost to the city residents. 0, not $1. If you live in the city of Hoboken, you should park here for free. Everyone else is going to be parking at a meter now. So we need to make sure that happens. And I'll address Uber in my next statement.
Mr. Occhipinti.
Thank you. It really comes down to a supply and demand issue. We're a mile-square city. We have significantly more issued permits than we have on-street parking spaces. I've advocated for years that the city should build more municipal parking garages. We just authorized a bond to do that in Northwest Hoboken. Councilman Russo and I disagree on the metered spaces across the city. I did not support that initiative. New York City doesn't do that in their residential districts. I don't think Hoboken should do that in ours. I think booting is a problem. I think we want to encourage visitors to the city of Hoboken. We don't want to see them continually being ticketed and booted. A lot of times it's your family members coming to visit you. And now we have a lot of family members who don't want to come and visit you in the city of Hoboken because they can't afford if they were to get a boot. That's an issue. Uber. Uber is a technology issue. The cab industry has every opportunity to create an app for themselves if they got together, which I believe they have because they've unionized now. They should be working to create an application that consumers can use that competes with Uber. Uber right now is illegal in the city of Hoboken. Our police department enforces that law, but you can't negate the fact that the technology is out there and the consumers do like Uber. So our taxi drivers should be getting together as an industry to create healthy competition.
Mr. Ramos.
Unless a bike lane gets created from Hoboken City of Patterson, it's impossible for me and other residents that travel west or north or south to get to work to get rid of their vehicles. Just impossible. No matter where the transit goes to, it's not going to happen. So we need to deal with that reality that people in Hoboken need to utilize their vehicles, which is why when I went to the state legislature, 2 bills I passed in my first 6-7 months of being in the state legislature was allowing municipalities to address the distances between where cars can park from crosswalks. The city of Hoboken convoluted that from the red, the yellow. I don't understand it. I don't know what they do with the legislation. I don't get it. I see people getting tickets still with that crosswalk bill. I don't get how that works right now. City of Hoboken. We need to rectify that situation, make it, and clarify that for residents. Secondly, the second bill I passed was state tax credits for private-public partnerships to build parking for main streets within urban centers. And the city of Hoboken qualifies for that. You know what is getting done right now? The main street off of Patterson, New Jersey. Private-public partnerships to build a 5-story, 6-story parking garage for out-of-town residents that support businesses. Because this disidentifies people from coming to town. Guess what happens to that? Our businesses die. Hoboken businesses cannot thrive on Hoboken residents alone unless we go back to talking back the big bad word, development. Unless we build more and have enough people to go to those restaurants and shops and do those types of things. So if we want to do that, the best way to do it is a parking garage, these state tax credits going forward. I agree with Councilman Occhipinti. The technology issue as far as Uber goes, the technology was ahead of the curve with the taxi industry. We see that throughout the country, and the taxi industry needs to get caught up with that a little bit faster.
Okay.
Thank you.
Time. We begin now our round of rebuttals with Ms. Castellano.
Thank you so much. Not so much a rebuttal as thank you to the Assemblyman, Ruben Ramos. So in the first ward, on 3rd and Washington, there's a parking lot. There's a bank, and there's a huge parking lot. I've been advocating for that to be exactly what Ruben's talking about. Plus, Walgreens has a surface parking lot also. That is another area that we could build up right in the middle of the business district. We have a great rate to our residents, and we'll have the commercial parking, and I think that's, I've been talking about it and advocating it for a few years now, but it's been falling on deaf ears with the administration. Thank you.
Anyone else? More on the subject of cars, parking, Uber. Mr. Russo, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just want to address the Uber issue. I disagree with my colleague, Councilman Occhipinti. It's not a technology issue, not at all. It's an issue of law. When we were sworn in, we all took an oath to uphold the laws of the city, the state, and the country. And the reality is that Uber is illegal. There's no way around it. It's illegal. They shouldn't be operating. Now, we also have to deal in reality. They will operate, and they will continue to operate because it's financially the right thing for them to do. What we need to do as a city is create our own laws in the city to make sure that we're monitoring the Uber. We'll make sure that we allow them, once the state does what they need to do and create the state law, we need to then enact local laws to monitor them just like we do with our cab industry.
More. Mr. DeFusco.
Councilwoman Castellano says she's been advocating a garage on 3rd and Washington, yet I'm unaware of anything that's passed in front of the city council that would have shown that advocacy. Whether or not Excuse me, Councilwoman. If this is the decorum you use on the city council, I can see why things aren't getting done. The municipal works garage, which falls squarely in our ward, is something that I would have advocated a decade ago if I were Councilwoman Castellano. Moving that out, it creates a blight on our community, creates noise and traffic that is unfortunate for our neighbors along Newark Street. She had every opportunity to push that forward. As the sole representative in the first ward, she hasn't done it. Listen, both her and her cousin, Michael Russo, will claim that candidates will do anything. Listen, they're saying whatever they need to say to hold on to what their positions are on the city council. Mr. Russo is running unopposed, but Councilwoman Castellano knows that her ward is very much looking at her votes and is going to hold her accountable to those votes. So I ask every voter on election day to take a sage word and listen to what's being said up here.
Anyone else on rebuttals? You already went. Anyone else on rebuttals? Okay. All right, so moving on. Next order will be Wefer, Ramos, DeFusco, Russo, Occhipinti, Castellano. And this question is, if someone you know from out of town was coming to meet you in Hoboken for a beer or a glass of wine or a Diet Coke, and they said, can you recommend a good place for us to sit and just have a beer or maybe a glass of wine or maybe a Diet Coke, where would you direct them, Ms. Wefer?
Northern Soul. You gotta go to Northern Soul, sit down, get some good music, have a good night.
Mr. Ramos.
I've been going to Leo Rendezvous before I was born. So I would say if you're going to the Fourth Ward establishment, for me, it's like a home away from home. You know, I've known the waitresses, the staff for years and years and years. They know I don't have to order my meal. No, I know they know I get the same thing every single time. My kids walk in, they know what my kids are going to get to eat. You know, my wife's going to get. She's a little more eccentric with her ordering, so they'd have to ask her what she's ordering. But the rest of us, they pretty much know what we're getting before we walk in the door. So Leo's is pretty much a home away from home for us.
Okay, Mr. DeFusco.
I make a pretty fine homemade grappa, so I'd invite my friend over to enjoy some of that. Listen, if this is about small businesses in the ward, McSwiggins is one that has benefited a very key corner, has been a good neighbor to the community, embraces Irish culture, and makes sure that they're respectable to all neighbors in regards to noise concerns and regards to making sure that they operate with a sense of respect for the community. So McSwiggins it is for me.
Mr. Russo.
The Third Ward has the finest establishments throughout the entire city.
Such as?
And now with a 3-week-old sitting at home, I probably will not be visiting any of them anytime soon. So the Third Ward is very unique. I always call it the heart of Hoboken. Councilman Occhipinti likes to use that line a lot, but the reality is the Third Ward has been the heart of Hoboken, will continue to be the heart of Hoboken, and I support each and every one of those establishments.
So you're not going to name any bar that you would go to for a beer or a glass of wine?
I go to all of them.
You're dodging the question, aren't you?
No, but
all right,
what is the
right.
Dodgers
You have that right. Yeah. Mr. Occhipinti. Oh, what? Pardon? This is a baseball update. The Dodgers are winning? 2-1. What inning? Pardon? What inning? Second or third? All right. Mr. Occhipinti.
Okay, well, in the heart of the Fourth Ward, I will go to Jack's Cabin, where they have a fantastic cheesesteak sandwich and chicken and waffle sliders, which are absolutely delicious. You can sit outside at their sidewalk cafe, and by next spring, you'll be overlooking our beautiful new Southwest Park.
All right. Ms. Castellano.
Yes. Curiously enough, I like Aiden from McSwiggins, and they also have a poster of Mr. DeFusco in the window. So of course he's going to say that they're the best place in town.
So you agree? You agree on this?
Wait! I'm not done yet. Don't
Okay.
put words in my mouth, please.
All right.
I frequent all the places in the First Ward and around the city, and also I really prefer the waterfront restaurants along the waterfront. I think that they are.
wanna name
They
one?
just add. No, I don't want to name one because I go to every single one of them, and they're all terrific.
All right. I'm going to just deny rebuttals on this one, if you guys don't mind, for the purposes of time. Next order will be Occhipinti, Castellano, Wefer, DeFusco, Ramos, and Russo. And so this, since I've been in town all these years, people always talk about development, and there's always debates about it. What's too much? What's too high? What's the right amount of height so that it's the most revenue to the city, but not too high so it's out of scale? We've gotten a bunch of cards like this, such as what is your definition of smart development? How will you standardize approvals for those who follow the requirements? What qualities do you look for zoning and planning board appointments? Also pertinent to that issue. So just generally your theory on what's the Goldilocks question? What's the right amount? What's versus too much, too little? Mr. Occhipinti.
Well, first of all, redevelopment is a tool for cities to use to enhance neighborhoods that have become run down or don't have proper zoning. And I think zoning is an issue in the city of Hoboken right now because we still have industrialized zoning, which is decades and decades, and we haven't updated that zoning so that we could have mixed use, commercial, residential, retail in some of our neighborhoods. So the city's moving forward with redevelopment plans, and they act as a tool, but we have to ask ourselves, what are we trying to get out of it? What is our goal? Is our goal more stormwater management? Is it open space for that neighborhood? Is it affordable housing above and beyond what's already required by the city of Hoboken? So I think you have to look uniquely at each project that comes across, and there's been no better example than the one I worked on with Councilman Russo, Councilman Doyle, and Councilman Mello on 7th and Jackson, where we got a 12-story building in exchange for underground rainwater retention system, acres of park space, a gymnasium, 10% affordable housing, new pedestrian plaza between the Monroe Center and the building, and it's going to completely change the face of that neighborhood because we used redevelopment in a way that was beneficial to the city of Hoboken and its residents.
Ms. Castellano, what's smart development?
Smart development to me is when we see the city, the streetscape block. In my own opinion, is the height and the scale. I like to go by what is on the block already. I don't think that it needs to sort of take away from what is Hoboken. And what is Hoboken? I think my years on the Historic Preservation Commission and the Zoning Board, I look at things in a different way, I think, in my own way. It is I like to keep the flavor. I like to keep the historic texture and fabric of Hoboken and of our streets and our blocks and our neighborhoods. I think it's important. I think there are some, particularly on First and Park, there's a huge development there, and they have Mr. DeFusco's posters in the window, and I think that if I asked him if he voted for that, what I think is a huge, large, overdeveloped development for that block, I am sure that he did vote for that. I would have never voted for that. It's out of place, it's out of scale, it's out of character, and furthermore, the residents in the area did not want it. So I am for what fits into the fabric of the community, of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Ms. Wefer, what is smart development?
So I think that the Fourth Ward is different from other parts of town in that there's a lot of areas that will be redeveloped in the future. There's the Southwest plan right now. First and foremost, I think that there should be another Fourth Ward resident on the zoning board. I think that the zoning board, different areas of town have different concerns, and I think that the Fourth Ward needs some more representation there. Development should, in the Fourth Ward, one of the most important things is we need to make sure that it doesn't aggravate the flooding problem. So the development needs to be green development. We should look at things on roofs to help prevent flooding and make sure that it's not going to worsen the problem. We have to talk about retail in the Fourth Ward. We don't have enough retail. People walk around, you knock on doors, people say, I wish there were more restaurants, I wish there were more retail, I wish there were more vibrant community. And so we need to look at zoning changes to encourage that type of development in the Fourth Ward. Smart development means that the development fits in with the character of the neighborhood. That being said, I think there are areas of the southwest part of Hoboken that can tolerate a little bit more development for more givebacks. For example, we're looking at park and open space in the area. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think the Fourth Ward is very unique, and for that reason, I would really like to see at least one more Fourth Ward resident on the zoning board.
Mr. DeFusco, what is smart development?
Yeah, smart development is talking with your neighbors about what they want. And just to respond to my opponent, I guess she's been off the zoning board for 21 years and she's forgotten that you can't actually vote on buildings that are your neighbors. So no, I did not vote for that building, and it's in the heart of your ward, and it's shocking that you don't actually know that because you appointed me to the zoning board. Similarly, I believe that you need to embrace our history and respect our past. What that also means, and what my opponent seems to forget, is that the zoning codes have changed. So it's very difficult to maintain historic blocks when the base flood elevation is what it is. So I believe we need to fight for ground floor retail. I believe we need to fight for historic preservation, and we need to address the historic preservation ordinance immediately. Because what's going to happen if the governing body doesn't move on it is we're going to lose that historic character. I want to see this community move forward in a productive way. I'm shocked that my opponent actually doesn't realize the way that zoning works in the city anymore. But listen, as somebody that spent 5 years on the zoning board, I will fight for the future of the city, and I will do it by embracing small businesses, by embracing the community, and making sure that everyone's voice is heard.
Mr. Ramos, what is smart development?
It's currently easier to build a chemical waste facility than it is a mixed-use commercial residential development the way the zoning laws are currently structured in the city of Hoboken right now. So I think we have a great plan actually on the books already, addresses all these issues. It's called the master plan. Back in 2002, the master plan, residents from all over the city of Hoboken got together, multiple meetings throughout the city of Hoboken, about a 1-2 year process. The master plan was presented, and guess what we never did? Adopted the zoning that the master plan would address all these issues of how each and every single ward and area would get developed in the future. It was widely praised. It was a cross-section, diverse residents of Hoboken coming together to create this master plan. But unfortunately, it was never adopted fully. The zoning was never adopted fully. So we have these issues that go before the zoning board time and time again, where if the master plan was adopted fully, with the zoning adopted fully, all these issues could be addressed. They address scale, flooding issues, development, retention, commercial development, retail space. All of it's right there. It's right there. The wheel already exists. Let's make it a little better to fit Hoboken 2015, not Hoboken 2003. Make it better, and let's move forward with it. Thank you.
And Mr. Russo.
Thank you. In a word, I think smart development is scale. The scale of the development. In the third ward, development of that 4 to 5 stories is really what you see across most of the ward. However, we just finished in our committee the building that Councilman Occhipinti referenced, where Councilman Occhipinti, Councilman Doyle, Councilman Mello, and myself sat and negotiated through a redevelopment plan and eventually agreement, a 14-story building and that steps down to 10 stories. So it's all about the scale and all about what's going to be beneficial for the city of Hoboken within that development. As we stated, you have a park space, you have a public plaza, a public gym, you have the flooding issue is being attempted to be resolved in that neighborhood. You have the streetscapes on 2 different streets that are going to be changed, and traffic flow is going to, the speed of traffic flow would decrease on those because of the park. So there's a lot that we packed into that one redevelopment plan in the third ward, and we did that with a larger scale building. So I think scale is really what we're talking about here more than anything, but we have to make sure that the scale kind of fits where we're going in the city. On the edge of town, like this project is, you could go a little bit higher, but in the middle of town, I think you need to stick with that true Hoboken scale.
We're running a little long, so I'd like to try to, so if you guys could do short rebuttals perhaps this time, then if you want. Mr. Occhipinti.
My apologies, but I'm gonna take it to a favorite topic, and that's food. Big Banner has the best roast pork. I got pointed out on that. I'm gonna see Craig for that in the 4th ward. Then I'll go to the little grocery, have the best egg and cheese by Nemeth. Go over to Tony's and Lasordo Brothers for some fantastic.
Point of order.
Well, hold on, hold on. And then I'll finish it at Northern Soul for some live music.
Wefer, DeFusco, Ramos, Occhipinti, Castellano, Russo. And so with the first closing statement of the night, Ms. Wefer.
I had to go first on the statement.
The randomizer.
Yeah. Not so random. So this is a very serious election. There's a lot at stake here, and there's nothing at the top of the ticket. So it'll probably be very low turnout. Control of the council is at stake, and it's going to affect how Hoboken moves forward. It's going to affect the character of Hoboken for the next 4 years. And so I think it's really important that all the issues that were addressed tonight, voters take them very seriously and think about how they want to see Hoboken progress the next 4 years. There's a difference between politics and governance. And I know I said that a few times tonight, but I think it really bears repeating. In Hoboken, this city was absolutely strangulated by people on the council that could not distinguish between politics and policy. And moving forward, I think it's very important that the people who represent their wards are able to say, you know what, I'm going to work with whomever is in office. I'm going to work in whatever way possible to make sure the city of Hoboken is moving forward. And sometimes that's, oh, okay, then I want to jump to one more thing. The other thing is constituent services. That is a very important function that ward council people hold. And so we've had an absolute failure there in the 4th Ward as far as I'm concerned. And I think it's very important that constituent services are addressed on an aggressive basis. And if I'm elected, I promise that I will make constituent services and good policy centerpieces of my time in elected office. Thank you.
Closing statement from Mr. DeFusco.
Though my opponent has attempted to minimize my impact on this community, my involvement on the zoning board can be seen in nearly 100 land use projects across town, from brownstones and corner businesses to mixed-use buildings that encourage commerce. I've had a significant influence on the streets we all call home. I'm proud of my service and seeing the positive influence I've had on the city, and hope to take that to the city council. Listen, I find it counterproductive when Councilwoman Castellano points fingers at others instead of taking personal responsibility. Politics gets a bad rap in this town because some treat it like a game. I will always put progress above politics. I don't have any old fights to fight, and I don't owe anyone anything. I'm not a career politician. That makes me a true independent. My opponent can't come close to saying the same thing.
Mr. Ramos.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. I think it was a healthy debate, but I think results matter. And I think we look at the issues that face the 4th Ward. One of the issues was flooding, and I think the funding of the first 2 pumps, I helped fund the first 2 pumps. And I think I could find the funding for the next 2 pumps as well. When you look at the resiliency plan, it's already the next 2 pumps, shovel ready to roll. Take the $25 million for each pump. Let's get them forward. Let's get the 4 flood pumps we know needs, that it works. Not MNET plan that was advocated. We don't know what that does, where that is today. MNET made it floated away into the river as well. But let's get these pumps finalized. Let's get it working. And I also think that congeniality on a city council and this faction conversation, I think everyone, when they get elected, should look for looking to the best advocacy they can for their wards, for their town, and having a healthy dialogue to moving our city forward. We hear this old Hoboken, the old guard, new guard. You know what that is? It's all BS. We're all one Hoboken. Let's see you move our town together for the future. Hey, the Southwest Park, when that started getting developed, my daughter was 4 years old. That plan started being discussed. You know what she is now? 12. She'll never play in that park. She'll be too big to play on those swings. Maybe she could walk our dog there one day. But my son's 7. He wasn't even born when that discussion was taking place right now. And hopefully, when I'm the councilman, I'll have that park up and running for Councilman Wefer's daughter to play in that park. Thank you.
Mr. Occhipinti.
I'd like to thank the Quality of Life Coalition for hosting tonight's debate. The biggest goal for our ward was adding much-needed open space and creating a new Southwest Park. Through community meetings and feedback from residents, we've created a quality product that will include an underground rainwater retention system, dog run, amphitheater, rain gardens, and children's play area. I know we are all very excited to break ground this fall and finish construction this spring. This park is our greatest achievement, and taking together with our other neighborhood improvements, you can see that we have done so much to improve the quality of life for all residents. For all that we've accomplished, there is still much more work to be done. We'll need to adopt a redevelopment plan for Southwest Hoboken, creating a mixed-use plan, incorporating new retail, commercial, and residential use. Through this redevelopment process, I'll be advocating for the expansion of the Southwest Park. We are finally seeing movement on one of our biggest challenges, the delayed traffic signal on Patterson Ave at the light rail crossing. New Jersey Transit has completed an analysis and is moving forward with recommendations to the Department of Transportation. Additionally, I'll be continuing to push for more of our roads to be paved. Your quality of life will always be the forefront of my mind. From fixing potholes to streetlights, I'm here to serve you. It has been an honor and a privilege to represent you in the 4th Ward. I respectfully ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 3rd, so that I may continue moving the 4th Ward forward. Thank you.
Ms. Castellano.
Thank you. With all the topics that were mentioned here tonight, always remember there are reasons why a council person votes yes or no. It's in the details of the resolution or the ordinance. November 3rd, I'm seeking to be reelected. It's 1C. Vote for proven independence, experience, and leadership qualities. Although my opponent says he's independent, he's part of Team Zimmer, who's being funded and supported by the mayor. Also, my goal is to enhance life living in the city. And we have a densely populated, small urban city. It's not easy, but there are measures to be taken, and I am not afraid to sit up and take those measures. I have often asked the question, what is your motivation? And my answer is to get the support and feedback from my supporters. And for example, I have a thank you note. Thank you for resolving my parking issues and the issues in my neighborhood. I'm eager to get started on your re-election campaign. So please let me know how I can help you. The best to you, Mike DeFusco.
And closing statement, Mr. Russo.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody here tonight. I'd like to thank the candidates up here tonight that were not opposed to having me here. Some of those candidates that are being supported by the mayor had issue with me debating here tonight. I think it's sad that those who want to represent this city would not want the constituency in the 3rd Ward to hear how I plan moving forward in the city. But that being said, I'd like to thank everybody for the years of support. This becomes a thank you campaign for me. This becomes the ability to go out and thank the residents in the 3rd Ward who have always supported me, who will continue to support me. And it says a lot, and I'm humbled by it, that no one is on the ballot against me this year. And in saying that, in closing, I'd just like to wish Frank Rea all the best. I know his health has been a concern. So Frank, if you're listening, if you're out there watching, all the best to you. Thank you.
One quick note, if you guys go to QLCHoboken.org, the videos are not on the homepage right now. They're on the subpage. I think they should be put on the homepage, by the way, so maybe that. But if you go and you don't see them, you need to click on the link that says the debates, and then you'll see the videos. So just so you guys and your friends in particular know who might not have been here tonight. And please don't leave yet, and please welcome Mary from QLC.
Thanks, Rob. I'm going to start with a bit of self-promotion. Quality of Life Coalition is very proud of these forums, and we've been running them for many, many, many years. We do a lot of other things, too. We're involved with we have a Committee for a Green Hoboken. We support and sponsor the uptown and downtown farmers markets. We're very involved in development issues. We monitor and participate in all of the redesign and development issues that are going on in town. So what do we need from you? We need your support. We are a 501c3 tax-exempt organization. We're a not-for-profit. We also need volunteers to assist us in moving our mission forward. Please do have your friends watch the debates, and if they weren't able to join us this evening. And you may also want to revisit some of these issues yourself. Now for some thank yous. Our candidates, thank you very much for many of you had to rearrange your schedules to be here tonight, and I greatly appreciate that. Thank you for taking the time to join us. To the members of the public, you could be reading a book, you could be hanging out with your family. It's really great that you're here participating in this. We're so happy to have you with us. Our audio and video experts, much appreciated assistance. And Bob Bowden, who brings both gravitas and humor to these events and provokes some healthy dialogue along the way as well. To our volunteers, Rose Roscoe, Chris Meyerink, Kathy Perry-Cardino, and Jim Vance. Once again, we really appreciate your support. For our venue here this evening, we need to thank the mayor, our director Pellegrini, Mike and his team here at Maldu Service Center for this convenient, very convenient and comfortable venue. And finally, to my QLC colleagues here tonight, Melissa Abernathy, Tom Chartier, and Inez Garcia-Kime, thank you guys for all of your support. So I know that everybody in this room will remember to vote, but remind your friends and neighbors to get out there. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.